What's up, Majin? I did a demo review of one of your games, so let's get started. So one thing about being a human flashbang is that you want to gather as much information as possible, as safely as possible, and as quiet as possible. Then at the moment where you expect to see an enemy, then you run out. So here's an example of me being the human flashbang. As you can see, I'm carefully checking my angles. Then at the last moment, I jump across. Notice how I check my surroundings. I want to gather as much info as possible before I die, and then I want to communicate to that info to my team. So over on the B side, your teammate actually got the info that one of the players had rotated off the B side, and your team actually starts to fall off and head towards B. It was a mistake to commit to fighting the A side player, as you have a two-man advantage, and you should hold on to that advantage as much as possible. So I want to go over the decision making of the enemy's point of view. So right now he's hearing that there's two people fighting him, getting spanned out, so he's making sure that he's really hard to hit and make sure he stay alive. So he actually repositioned back into this box by here by the sound cue of you reloading. Now he gets the information that his teammate has died, so he's trying to check his corner, and then he crouches up and he kills. And notice how he's actually controlling the engagement of when he wants to take a fight, because his entire goal is to stay alive as much as possible and wait for his teammate to come and help him. The reason why I point out this round is when you're on top of the truck, you're actually exposed your entire body to a lot of different angles, and you don't really have a way to fall off. And the enemy wants to control any kind of engagement. He can peek whenever, and first thing he'll see is you on top of the truck, which makes you an easy target. And that's why I think that the best decision that you could make is just to fall off and go with your team. So you shouldn't hold an angle statically. You actually want to jiggle the angle like this. The reason why you jiggle angles in general is that, one, you actually make yourself harder to hit, and two, you're taking advantage of this concept called peeker's advantage. Peeker's advantage means that you are gaining the benefit that you're able to see your enemies before they see you. When you peek, you get the information first, then the server has to update that you peeked, and then the enemy's game has to update that you peeked. Thus, the person who peeked first will have a faster reaction time to kill.
Grenade. Smoking. Planted. Bomb has been planted.
It was a mistake that you try to fight this man in general. You have a two-man advantage, and you shouldn't really give him a 1v1 fight, as there's a chance that you will lose the fight and the enemy will have a better chance to win the round. In general, you should play passive and be more safe when you have any kind of man advantage, and you should be more risky and aggressive when you have any kind of man disadvantage. Another problem that you have is that you're not aware of what your team is doing and what position is open. Your teammate went to window, and your other teammate is now watching mid. When you have the downtime and you're in cover, you should look at the mini-map and see which spot needs to be covered. So that was a common op angle that you peeked and one you should be aware of. Here's how oppers usually open the round. So here's a CSGO video by Mahone, which he breaks down one opper's playstyle that is very common. First, you see the opper mollies T-ramp and then positions on alt middle. He mollies T-ramp to push the enemy back into T-ramp so he can fully focus on alt middle. Then the opper falls back into arches. He falls off because later in the round the opper becomes more exposed to the threat that the T has apartment control and the T's can peek out on him at any time. You can push back the opper by throwing a flashbang off this wall like so. As you can see here, you just got absolutely fucked. One thing I noticed is you don't have any variety in your playstyle. For example, when I was watching through your demos, I noticed that you only go through the apps window and never go through the apartment door. As you can see, the CTs are taking advantage of this by pushing apartments and by posting on the window position. Here's a couple of variety to add to your games. You can molly the boiler and start clearing the apartments via door. You can molly the boiler and hold for any CT aggression at this angle. You can occasionally peek in and out like this. You can molly the boiler and hold an off angle. When you're clearing angles, you're not pre-aiming anything or expecting a fight. You're doing what's called lazy peeking, and that's when you're holding shift and just moving your mouse to match the shift walking speed. Instead, what you want to do is to peek with the purpose, and I'll show you an example. So here's me in the pre-fire workshop map. Notice when I'm peeking, I'm moving fast and stopping fast. This is because I'm imagining that the fight will happen when I peek. Here in this round, you failed to stop a B-rush. Even though this was an ego round, there's a better way to stop a B-rush, so let's take a look. So notice that I'm throwing the grenade first, then throwing the Molotov. This is because the grenade will actually hit the first person who is running, and the Molotov will make it more risky to push. The flashbang indicates that if the T decide to pass the Molotov, they will be blinded, thus you can peek and kill them. So wide swinging like this without info is a bad idea. You can wide swing when you have the info that this is the only enemy at banana. You can jump spot first to safely get the info on where the T's are, and then you can wide swing. Or you can slowly check these angles like this. Alright, let me know if that's been helpful or not, and I'll see you later. This man has asserted his dominance over you. How does it feel to be a beta male?